Today I've brought a story that I am sure none of you will be able to hold back your tears while watching, because a boy who lost his parents struggles so much to save his little sick sister in ways you cannot even imagine. When you see the ending, tears of both pain and joy will flow from your eyes. And I believe this is a movie everyone should watch at least once, because this film will inspire you to rise up no matter what situation life throws at you. So my request is, please don't just watch the script, but the full movie. So viewers, without wasting time, let's dive into the story. The story begins in the year 2013. We see a boy named Jing, who had just woken up from sleep. Jing lived with his only sister, Tong. They had no parents. That is why Jing loved his little sister as if she were his own daughter. He took care of all her needs. After waking up and freshening up, Jing takes his sister to school. After dropping her off, he goes to a hospital to meet a doctor. Here we come to know the truth. Jing's little sister is suffering from a terrible heart disease. It was the same disease their mother once had, the same disease that caused their mother's death. Now the little girl has inherited it. The doctor tells him that Tong is still very young. If she undergoes surgery at this age, she will be able to grow up and live a healthy life. But the operation will cost around 500,000 yen. Hearing this, it felt as if the sky collapsed on Jing. He was very poor. He barely managed to live with his sister. To him, arranging 500,000 yen was impossible. Feeling broken, he returns to his shop. We then see that Jing runs a small mobile repair shop named Niece View. He repaired small electronics and earned enough to survive with his sister. That day, for a repair job, he goes to a local nursing home. After fixing a TV there, a man named Liang pays him his wages. Liang was in charge of the nursing home, and he also shared a good friendship with Jing. After finishing the work, Jing returns home with his sister. But he finds a letter left on his door by his landlord, demanding the rent payment as soon as possible. Later, while preparing dinner, his little sister smiles and shows him that she has lost a tooth. Jing carefully keeps that tooth with him as a memory. That night, one of his friends calls him and asks him to come to a warehouse. His friend worked there as a laborer. When Jing goes, his friend asks, "Did your father leave you nothing at all?" Jing replies, "The fact that my father didn't leave behind any debt, that itself is a blessing for me." After that, they open a large container together. Inside it were almost 100,000 second-hand mobile phones. His friend explains that these phones were prepared for export to other countries, but because the buyers rejected them, they remained stuck here. The man who used to export these phones is now in prison. These phones had only minor issues. If repaired, they could be sold for a high price. His friend offers him all of them for 100,000 yen. Jing realizes that if he repairs and sells them, he could make a huge profit. But he didn't have that kind of money. So for now, he takes one phone back to his shop and tries to fix it. After a little effort, he manages to repair it successfully. That made him realize he could fix all the phones in that container. Determined, he borrows 100,000 yen from a local moneylender at 2% interest. The lender makes one condition. If Jing fails to repay within a month, he would seize everything from his shop. With no choice, Jing agrees and buys all the phones. Slowly, he starts repairing and selling them to different shops. His business grows rapidly. After doing the calculations, he sees that if he sells all the phones, he will make nearly 900,000 yen profit. Jing becomes overjoyed, because this means he could finally pay for his sister's surgery and end all their struggles. One day, he takes his sister from school straight to a nice restaurant for a meal. Their life was finally looking bright. But only 2 weeks later, disaster strikes. The city government issues a ban on buying and selling second-hand mobile phones. Because of this trade, phone theft and scams in the city had increased rapidly. The police had already arrested 2 dealers involved. Hearing this, it felt as if the sky collapsed on Jing once again. He had to repay the debt very soon. On top of that, he had to pay the rent for the warehouse where the phones were stored. Meanwhile, his little sister's condition was worsening. He had no idea what to do. With the little money he had, He paid the warehouse owner to keep the phones stored for a few more days. Jing started breaking down inside. His profitable business was being destroyed right before his eyes. He couldn't accept it. A few days later, he goes to the second-hand mobile company. He tells the manager, "Sir, recently the government has banned the trade of second-hand mobile phones, but the parts of those phones are still legal to sell. I have a lot of phones with me. I can repair the parts and supply them to your company." But the manager didn't pay much attention, because to reuse faulty phone parts, a quality control certificate was required. It was something almost impossible to manage. But Jing pleaded with the manager, "Sir, just give me a chance. I will repair the parts so well that they will pass 100% in quality control." Hearing his words, the manager agreed to give him one chance. He said, "All right, fix a few parts properly and bring them to me." Receiving this permission, Jing devoted himself day and night in his shop, working only to repair the mobile parts perfectly. But by then, 1 month had already passed. The lender came to his shop that very day, demanding repayment. Jing explained his situation to him. He said, "I've made a big deal with a mobile company. Please give me just 1 more week, and then I will repay all your money." Hearing this, the lender's heart softened. He gave Jing 7 more days, but before leaving he warned again. If the money wasn't paid within 7 days, he would take away everything from the shop. Meanwhile, to better understand the mobile parts, Jing hung diagrams and pictures of them all over his shop. His life now revolved around only 2 things: taking his sister to and from school, and spending the rest of the day repairing phone parts. He worked tirelessly, day and night. Some parts were badly damaged and extremely difficult to fix. On the other hand, his landlord kept pressuring him for house rent. Yet Jing focused only on repairing the mobile components with full dedication. After days of effort, finally, he managed to completely disassemble one phone and repair every single part with 100% perfection. He sent the parts for quality control testing at the laboratory. Within a day, he received the lab report, which confirmed that all the parts he had repaired were 100% quality approved. Jing was overjoyed. Meanwhile, we see the owner of the mobile company, Mr. Lee, who had come to the city for a meeting. With him was the same manager who had given Jing the chance. At that moment, Jing rushed there and showed the quality control report to the manager. He told him, "Sir, all the parts I repaired have passed quality control. Please check them once." But the manager wasn't willing to listen. He ignored Jing and said, "Look, I never told you to do all this. You did it, and that's good, but I cannot buy them." Hearing this, Jing grew furious and began shouting at the manager. Seeing this, Mr. Lee glanced at Jing, but without saying a word, he entered the elevator and went upstairs. But by then, Jing had realized that this man was the owner of the company. So he rushed to another elevator and waited upstairs for Mr. Lieutenant. After the meeting, when Mr. Lee came out, Jing approached him and explained, "Sir, I can repair mobile parts really well. I already have many parts from your company's phones. All of my repaired parts have passed quality control. If you check them, you can reuse them. With those parts, you can even build new phones or use them in your service centers. This way, you'll make great profits." Though Mr. Lee said nothing, he listened very attentively. Then he got into his car. Seeing this, Jing pleaded with him, "Sir, please give me 10 minutes. I will explain everything to you." But Lee replied, "I don't have 10 minutes. I must reach the station quickly or I'll miss my train. But yes, I will come back here again after 1 month. Meet me then." Saying this, Mr. Lee left. Jing felt deeply disappointed. He didn't have 1 month. He had only 5 days left to repay the lender. Heartbroken, Jing took out his phone and saw the time. 2:02. That meant the train hadn't left yet. There was still some time. He immediately jumped on his scooter and sped toward the station. But after going some distance, he collided with a bicycle and fell to the ground. His time was running out fast. All he wanted was to get 10 minutes with the company owner before he boarded the train. But the accident had broken his scooter. With no other choice, he began running towards the station. Unfortunately, near the station, a car hit him again, injuring him further. Still, he refused to give up. With all his strength, he ran desperately toward the station. Meanwhile, Mr. Lee had already entered the station, while poor Jing was still outside. Before Jing could reach inside, Mr. Lee had already boarded the train. Everyone thought Jing had lost. But at the very last moment, Jing, too, jumped into the train. Somehow he made it and sat right in front of Mr. Lieutenant. Breathless, he explained everything. "Sir, the parts I repaired can be used for all your needs. I had bought almost 100,000 broken phones from your company. I repaired them and even sold them. But due to the government's ban, my business was shut down. So now, I want to sell these parts to your company, to benefit both you and me." Mr. Lee glanced at the quality control certificates Jing showed him. But the manager immediately said, "No one in this country has ever done business with second-hand phone parts. It's easy to say such things, but it's not easy to do." Jing replied, "Exactly, no one has done it yet. That's why this is the opportunity we must seize. If we can use quality-tested parts to build new phones or use them in service centers, then the prices of our phones will be much lower. This way we can flood the market with good phones at cheap prices." Hearing all this, Mr. Lee only said, "I understand everything. But getting quality approval for each of the 100,000 phone parts isn't that easy." Jing assured him, "Sir, just give me one chance. I promise I will make it happen." Seeing Jing's confidence, Mr. Lee said to him, "All right then, go ahead with your work, but our company cannot help you in any way. You'll have to do everything on your own, with your own expenses. And if, after finishing, you can bring me at least 85% good results, then call me. I will buy everything." Saying this, he handed his business card to Jing. With a glimmer of hope, Jing got off at the next station. Meanwhile, Mr. Lee said to his manager, "You know, when I was just 20 years old, I too came to Shenzhen empty-handed. And today, I own such a big business. I believe this boy will also achieve something great one day." On the other side, we see Jing's little sister, who still hadn't gone home from school because her brother hadn't come to pick her up. By then, it was quite late at night. The school guard was sitting with the little girl, taking care of her. At that moment, Jing finally arrived. He apologized to the guard for being late, and then walked home with his little sister. But Tong asked her brother, "Brother, where's your scooter? Are we going to walk all the way home?" Jing replied, "The scooter is broken, sister. Once I fix it, I'll bring it back." But by then, Tong noticed the wounds on Jing's hands, the injuries from his accident on the way to the station. She also saw deeper wounds on his back. She insisted that he should see a doctor quickly, but the poor boy didn't even have money for a doctor's visit. The next day, we see Jing meeting with the old-age homeowner and his friend, Liang. Jing explained everything to him. "Liang, I've got a job in mobile repairing, but I need a lot of money to do it. To raise that money, I'll need to take a small job. With that job's earnings, I can slowly build up my business. Can you please help me a little with this? Even some money or time from you would mean a lot." But Liang didn't have the courage. If Jing somehow failed the quality control test, then both his money and time would be wasted, because the company wouldn't compensate anything. Still, Jing kept requesting. He explained that his little sister was sick, and he must arrange 500,000 yuan for her treatment, no matter what. Hearing about the little girl, Liang's heart melted. He finally agreed to help. Meanwhile, to set up a small factory, Jing sold his scooter and even his mobile repair shop. Then he went to meet a construction supervisor to ask for more money. Jing had worked with this supervisor before, so this time he requested him for some building cleaning work. But the supervisor refused to give him any job. Seeing no option, Jing literally held on to the supervisor's feet, begging, "Boss, my sister is very sick. Please give me a job." Hearing this, the supervisor finally agreed. With this money, Jing found a warehouse to rent as a small factory. The owner demanded 3,000 yuan per month. Jing tried hard to negotiate for less rent, but it didn't work. Moreover, the whole warehouse was filled with broken junk. Seeing this, Jing told the owner, "All right, I'll pay 3,000 yuan per month, but you have to let me use all this broken scrap lying here." The warehouse owner agreed. From the next day, Jing and Liang started working tirelessly. They cleaned up the whole warehouse. There were some old tables too, which they repaired and made usable. Then Jing moved all the containers of broken phones from his old place into this warehouse. But to fix everything, he now needed a big team. So he went to a restaurant he knew where a woman named Lena worked. She once had a job in an electronics factory. But one day, due to a terrible explosion, both her eardrums were damaged. She couldn't hear properly anymore, so she lost her job. Now she worked as a waitress here, struggling hard. Jing promised her a decent-paying job in his factory. Lena agreed. From the next day, Jing began teaching her the work carefully. But since Lena couldn't hear properly, Jing had to shout again and again to communicate. Of course, one person alone wasn't enough. Jing needed more workers. So his next target was another person named John. He had a bad temper. He once worked as a security guard. But one day, in a fit of rage, he beat up his own boss. Since then, his reputation was ruined, and no one wanted to give him a job. Jing brought him into the factory too, since people like him agreed to work for lower pay. This way, Jing started building a team, poor, helpless, disabled, and elderly people, giving them jobs in his factory. But the biggest challenge still remained, training all of them in mobile repairing. So Jing threw himself fully into teaching them. Meanwhile, he named his factory Nice View Electronics Company. Next, we see Jing cleaning the glass windows of a tall building from the outside. He was doing such jobs to pay his factory's monthly rent, his workers' salaries, and ultimately to save money for his sister's treatment. One day at the factory, while checking the accounts, Jing realized their work was progressing very slowly. At this rate, it would take far too long, and until then he wouldn't even be able to pay his workers' wages. Amidst this tension, suddenly a young boy arrived there. He said to Jing, "Brother, I have an idea. If we were to immerse the mobile parts in a special acid, it would be possible to extract gold from them. In reality, a mobile motherboard contains a small amount of gold, and everyone knows how valuable gold is in the market. But this process was completely illegal. That's why Jin forbade it, as he didn't want his legitimate business to be jeopardized in any way." Later, as Jin was inspecting his factory, he noticed several thug-like young men loitering there. One of his workers explained that they had come for Lena. Back when Lena had worked at an electronics company, her hearing was severely damaged due to loud noise, prompting her to file a lawsuit against the company for compensation. These thugs had come to intimidate her into dropping the case, but Lena stood her ground, refusing to withdraw the lawsuit. Enraged, the thugs began attacking her. Witnessing this, Jin immediately jumped in to fight them. In defending his employees, he endured several blows himself. At that moment, his other employees, despite being physically disabled, rushed in to help. The thugs, in turn, brutally attacked these vulnerable workers. From a distance, John, a notoriously bad-tempered man, watched the chaos. Furious at the injustice, he leaped in and single-handedly overpowered the thugs, injuring them in the process. Shortly after, the police arrived and arrested the attackers, while Jin and his team were released with a warning. That night, when Jin returned home with his sister, he found a notice from the landlord stating that entry into the house required paying 3 months' rent up front. The landlord had locked the house, assuming that if Jin entered, he might take his belongings and run. Desperate, Jin called the landlord to request more time, but to no avail. With no other options, Jin and his sister ate at a street food stall. Lena, exhausted, asked, "Brother, I'm so sleepy. Where will I sleep?" With no solution, Jin took her to the old-age home where Liang and his wife worked. Liang's wife managed to arrange a place for the little girl to sleep. With his sister safe, Jin went out to find the friend who had sold him the defective mobiles. This friend owed him 2,000 yen and had been avoiding repayment. Enraged, Jin tracked him to a club where he was playing games. The friend refused to pay, so Jin forcibly took him to his house and retrieved the small amount of money available. Jin then used it to pay part of his rent, allowing the landlord to release some of his essential belongings. With these items, Jin returned to the factory with his sister, knowing he would now have to live there. Jin felt utterly helpless, unable to provide for his ailing sister. The next day, while taking her to school, his employees noticed that Jin had moved all his possessions into the factory, realizing the landlord had evicted him. Moved by his struggle, they threw themselves into helping him. Jin himself worked tirelessly during the day cleaning the building and spent nights checking the mobile parts. Each day passed in relentless effort, yet he silently vowed to ensure his sister received proper care and that he would achieve something great. One night, as Jin finally dozed off briefly, his sister woke him, saying, "Brother, I hear some noises outside." Investigating, Jin saw a man trying to steal his containers of defective mobiles, the same boy who had earlier suggested extracting gold from the motherboards. Without hesitation, Jin chased him. The thief had already started the truck with all the mobiles. Using all his strength, Jin clung onto the truck, eventually jumping on top. A fierce struggle ensued on the moving vehicle. At one point, both Jin and the boy fell off the truck unconscious, while the driver escaped with the mobiles. Soon, another driver came to help and called the police. Jin realized both his fingers were broken, but he refused to let go of the boy, fearing the stolen mobiles would be lost forever. After the police arrested the thief, Jin went to the hospital to get his fingers plastered. Within a few days, police investigation recovered all the stolen mobiles through the boy's involvement. The authorities warned Jin that the culprits were dangerous and to remain vigilant, as they might harass him again. The following day, Jin returned to cleaning the building. During work, a bucket slipped from his hands. The supervisor called him over and asked him to remove his gloves. When Jin complied, the supervisor noticed both his fingers were broken. The company had strict rules. No injured or sick workers could perform tasks, as a previous incident had led to a worker falling and dying, resulting in massive compensation claims. Thus, the supervisor instructed Jin to stop working. Jin pleaded earnestly with his supervisor, "Please, give me the chance to work this month. I really need the money." But the supervisor shook his head and said, "Look, I can't do it. Take the payment for the 3 days you've already worked and leave." With that, he handed Jin a sum of money. To Jin's surprise, it was more than he expected. The supervisor knew Jin was a good young man, trying desperately to get medical care for his sister. Company rules meant that if he didn't follow protocol, he could lose his own job. So the supervisor gave him a little extra, enough to help him, before letting him go. With a small measure of consolation, Jin returned to his factory to continue his work. Soon, the factory owner came demanding the remaining rent, but Jin had no money to pay. He asked for a few more days. That very day, in the midst of a terrible storm, Jin rushed to the mobile company manager, hoping to get a small advance. He promised to return the money, but the manager refused and even scolded him, sending him away. Jin was crushed. Every door for help seemed closed. Yet despite the heavy rain, he still went to pick up his sister from school. Seeing his desperate state, the school's security guard allowed them to stay for the night as the storm raged outside. That night, Jin put his sister to sleep and reflected on his past. In a flashback, we see Jin's mother on her deathbed at the hospital, whispering to young Jin, "My time in this world is ending. Take care of your little sister." Back then, both Jin and his sister were very young. Left behind in such a situation, their mother passed away. The present-day Jin weeps uncontrollably, overwhelmed by guilt that despite his promise, he hasn't been able to care for his sister properly. The entire night passes in sorrow. The next morning, Jin went to his factory, only to find that the owner had thrown all their belongings out and rented the factory to someone else. Jin had no strength left to fight. He sat there in despair, crying. Then his employees arrived. They assumed that the storm might have scattered their things outside. Jin, dejected, explained, "Forgive me, everyone. The factory owner has kicked us out. I don't even have the money to pay him. I only have 2 weeks left to complete this work, and I have no idea how to manage it. I might not even be able to pay your wages. Please forgive me." But his employees reassured him, "We don't need the money urgently. You can pay us slowly. And the factory is gone? That doesn't matter. We'll work from home." Hearing this, Jin broke down completely, tears streaming uncontrollably, but hope rekindled in his heart. With his employees' help, he sorted all the materials and sent them to each of their homes. From home, each worker devoted themselves fully, focusing on their tasks. That night, back at the orphanage, Jin was working on mobile repairs when his sister, sleeping beside him, awoke. "Brother," she said softly, "I dreamed of Mom tonight. She told me I've grown up now, and I can take care of myself." She clung to him, and in that moment, Jin could no longer hold back his tears. He cried freely, his heart shaken to its core. The next morning, Jin and all his employees finally finished repairing all the parts. They loaded everything onto a huge truck and sent it to the laboratory for the quality control check. Everyone held their breath in hope, wishing they would pass the quality control test. Then Jin took his sister to school and told her, "I might be a little late coming back today. The results of the quality control check will be announced today." Hearing this, Tong reassured her brother, "Don't worry at all, brother. Everything will be fine because you are the best at everything." Meanwhile, Jin was extremely tense. The results of the quality control test would be reported directly to the mobile company's owner, so he went with his entire team to the mobile company and waited. Hours passed before a woman finally stood up and said, "Mr. Lee, the company owner has called you to his office." Upon hearing this, Jin, filled with anxiety, took his whole team to Mr. Lee's office. Mr. Lee asked, "Who are these with you?" Jin introduced them not just as his employees but as his partners. Finally, Mr. Lee said, "I told you that if 85% of your parts passed the quality control test, I would buy everything. Congratulations! 87% of your parts have passed the test. I will buy all the fully repaired parts immediately." Hearing this, everyone was overjoyed. Yet, they controlled their emotions slightly while talking to Mr. Lee. Then Mr. Lee offered Jin a new task, a massive deal worth 50 million yen. He explained that he wanted Jin to repair all the damaged mobile phones in the company's stock. Jin felt nervous and asked, "Sir, can you give me an advance this time?" The last project was very challenging. Mr. Lee assured him, "You will receive the full 50 million yen in advance. Focus and work diligently." Jin's joy knew no bounds. Yet, he quietly left with his partners, knowing that if they shouted and celebrated in the office, people might think they were crazy. Once they got into the elevator, however, their joy could no longer be contained. They hugged each other, crying tears of happiness. For the first time, we see Jin so truly happy. Honestly, this scene is deeply moving. It can bring tears to anyone's eyes. Following this extraordinary scene, we directly see a scene from March 2014, where Tong has had her operation and is now fully recovered. Then we jump to a scene from 2019, showing that Jin has established a huge company called Nice View Electronics. His sister, Tong, has grown up. Now Jin stands on a large stage giving a motivational speech to young people. Everyone who had been by his side during his hardships is present, clapping to welcome him. We learn that Tong now aspires to become a doctor, aiming to provide free medical care to poor patients. Jin looks into his sister's eyes, breathing a sigh of relief. With that, today's story comes to an end. Honestly, I couldn't hold back my tears while watching the movie. Even when I was writing the script, I kept waiting for that incredible scene, waiting to see Jin victorious in this battle, waiting to see the tears of joy on his face. Truly, I feel this movie is a masterpiece. How did you feel about it? Share your thoughts in the comments. That's all from me today. Allah Hafiz.